Welcome back. My next guest is Nestor J. Aparicio. J stands for ginormous. He has a ginormous presence in the world of Baltimore sports, Maryland sports, all things of sports, and Baltimore positive. Nestor, welcome in.
I love the J is ginormous. I didn't know if it was a
Ginormous. There
G
you
or a
go.
J or
Ginormous.
in
Well,
my language it would be hote. It would say like it would be silent, right?
right.
Like a silent J is what it would
Got it.
be. So
Got it. Gigantes.
hey man, what a weekend, right? I mean, we have good
Great
weather, we
weekend.
got Preakness, Orioles are
Oh,
relevant. I mean,
lacrosse
people getting
playoffs,
out.
PGA championship. You got all kind of great stuff going on.
Well, yeah, and I guess more than anything, the relevance of sports the last couple of weeks. And I really thought about this that Mountcastle hit that big home run for 50 grand for the lottery and all that the other day. And I thought, man, this is almost the way it felt when it was normal back in the 90s before Peter sort of wrecked it. And that every May there would be baseball in the Preakness. And even if we have a football team, even when we had Ray Lewis, it was below the fold. The
It
football team
was.
wasn't the number one concern in May. You know what I mean? Like, hey, wake me up in August when camp begins. And I think the football team, the large S, and the fact that baseball just literally disappeared itself for a long time. Now that baseball has reappeared itself, dude, I got to hear from you. I mean, I'll have you on my
Mhm.
show next week. This is your show. Tell your people, tell everybody what you saw on Sunday and Monday.
Hey, I can't tell you the last time, Nestor, I went to back Oriole games. I mean, I don't. It may have been never, but
It was
Sunday
when I
was.
had a press pass, I would tell you. Well, I went to the playoff games, but like a regular season game. I mean, it was
No,
I
but
don't even know this century. I mean, literally that I would go to two
look,
Oriole games in a row, and I live 2 blocks away.
yep. Sunday I got comped 5 tickets from one of my vendors that were nice enough, and it was Mother's Day, and we had a great time. And then, thanks to you, I knew who Shohei Ohtani was, and I wanted to see him, and I was able. I bought 4 tickets behind home plate on my dime, and he delivered 458-foot home run and struck out five, and he was just Superman, and the place was pretty packed, at least the lower level. I just had a great time. I'm loving baseball. I'm loving all the changes. I love the pitch clock, the non-shift of the infield, the ghost runner. I'm getting to bed at a decent hour, even when I go to the ballpark. I hope they keep the 6:35 start time forever. I know they won't, but boy, oh
Whoa, whoa,
boy,
whoa, whoa! What do you mean? They won't? Why won't they?
because aren't they going to move it to 7 o'clock or 7:35 when school starts or something like that? Or
I think maybe, but you're saying if
I'm
they move them
liking.
all to 6:35, like I'm wondering the same thing. Listen, it's cost my yoga class, right? Like I do a yoga class, it's a 7 o'clock class. There's a bunch of ladies in the class, and they all talk to me about the Orioles. They love the Orioles. They're not in the class anymore, and I found myself on the mat on Tuesday night. I got off the mat, we grabbed some food, we came home, and my wife said to me, "Hey, we're gonna go watch the game, right?"
Mhm.
And it was 5-3 when I got off the mat. It was 7-3. Mountcastle with the home run, like the whole deal. It's become a part of my life again in a good way, in a way that it should be, in a way that when the game's over and Rob Long comes on, I'm like, hold on, I want to see Ryan Mountcastle. I said to my wife, he seems like a nice kid. Now, this is on John Angelos and TJ Brightman that I should have a media pass to be down there to know whether he's a nice kid or not, especially since my Caucasian employee has access to this. But I would say for me, watching it from afar because I have been shut out and I love baseball. My last name's Aparicio, and I used to do sports around here exclusively. Watching it on TV, watching it unfold, Kevin Brown, Ben McDonald, the way that I drink Oriole baseball, right? Like I put it on TV, it's
Mhm.
on, it goes away. I'm not consumed with it. They don't let me come to the ballpark and know people and have people on my show and make them a part of my world. It's very Orioles. It's very, we'll keep you 3 hand distances away as long as you give us your money. That's been the story of the Angelos era for 30 years. I don't know. I mean, the squirt thing seems so stupid to me, but you and I talked about it, and I'm like, I'll go, and you have I'm not only going to go for a day game. I'm not going to go out there and get drenched at 10 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night, whenever it is.
It
But
looks like a lot of fun.
the early start, that doesn't even feel controversial. And I don't know
It,
why, because it feels to me like, how could I get down there and get a meal? Because I think like that. I think like the reason they're there is to stimulate activity in and around all of it. So is Janet Jackson. And I had Bill Weedell on from CFG Bank last week over at State Fair. And we talked about that it can't just be you go down, park, and leave. Leonard Raskin came on this week. He went down to see 6, parked in the Hippodrome, left. Go to, straight in, straight out.
Straight out.
6:30 Oriole game feels that way to me, and look, man,
parking
I
was
wanted
easy.
to stimulate the city.
Yeah, parking was easy. I got home at 5:30 from work. I was in the stadium at 6:05. Was able to get some food and some drinks before we sat down, and it was great. It was easy in, easy out. Good crowd. The game wasn't great from an Orioles standpoint. It was a historic game that we saw. First pitcher to get on base 5 times since 1964. It was just a really good night for us, and I'm really enjoying going out to the ballpark. I guess they've cut a half an hour from the time of the game, but to me that half hour seems significant. It just seems a lot better game to me.
I agree that it's a better game. Now that they've made it shorter, they could go back to playing at 7:35 for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that if it ended
works.
at 10:15, I lived a lifetime where games started at 7:30 and ended around 10 o'clock. And that was palatable for my father to go to work at the Point back in the day. It was very palatable for me when I lived in White Marsh and I covered the team in the 90s and drove downtown and would do my show at Hooters and like all of that kind of stuff back in the era. But I agree with you. I think the 6:35 thing is something that appeals to people our age, and we ain't getting younger, Den, no offense, but I think they want 50 and 60-year-old people to feel more comfortable about it first and figuring like young people don't know any different.
Yeah.
They don't know that the game started at 7:35 or 8:05 back. Like they're doing this based on their own research, and my research is I don't care what I think. I'm checking the weather. Everybody else seems to really like it. I'm not in love with it, but it's just a weird time that it stops my night earlier.
Sure.
Right. I mean, sort of where my wife gets off at 5 o'clock and the game starts. Like, I'm wondering if my wife got off at 5 o'clock and worked in Hunt Valley and I lived in Bel Air, that 6:35 would make me show up in the 3rd inning.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this,
tough.
Monday night, I would have loved to have gone to the game. Like, I would have loved to seen Shohei pitch, right? The night you went. John Waite was playing. It's a Preakness event. The Pimlico people still think I'm a media member. Don't tell anybody. But I went to the media event, the post position draw, and I love John Waite. And I invited Johnny Allen, who's like one of my dear friends. Everybody knows that. And we ran into some friends. My wife loves John Waite, the babies, bad English, all that. So we wanted to support that, and it was outside. But at the John Waite played at 6, 10 of 6, played till about maybe 5 minutes to 7 o'clock, played an hour and a half, like maybe hour, 15 minutes, whatever. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. But I was with my boy, Ed Stilk, and his brother, and they're big baseball fans. I mean, like huge, they come to me honestly through sports and rock and roll, but they love the Orioles, love the Ravens. He was a 513 season ticket holder for years. And anybody's worried about Ed Stilk, he had some health issues. He's doing great. It's great to see him doing well. And they were like on their app, Dennis, I think it was about 5 or 10 after 7, right? And the show's broken up. We all got picks. We met John Waite.
Mm-hmm.
We're about, and I said to my wife, I'm like, look, do you want to go down there? She hadn't been home yet. She hadn't been home in a week. I picked her up at the airport. We went to Beaumont, had some lunch. Beautiful. But the guys were like, it's top of the 2nd inning. I'm at the Guinness factory in Halethorpe. It's all highway. The game's already started. I'll just be able to pull in and pay $25 to park or whatever. Like, I don't know if they went or not. But I know they were heading back to White Marsh, so they were going that way.
They were going that way.
And remember when Chuck Thompson would say in the 2nd inning, "Hey, folks, we got plenty of room out here. If you're in the neighborhood, come on by." You remember Chuck would say that in 2nd, 3rd inning, and sometimes people would meander in the 4th inning. And there's no sin at showing up in the 3rd inning of a Shohei Ohtani game. I don't know whether the fellas went or not, but I was moved. And if my wife and my cat, and if she didn't have suitcase in the trunk of the car, we would have gone. I mean, it was quick enough to be down there to your point. They would have been in their seats by 7:25. They really would have been.
There were plenty of people in that came around in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th inning. It filled up noticeably after the game started because, there's people at work. People get off at 5 o'clock.
6:35 doesn't work for everybody.
It just does not
right?
work. It's very tight.
Right.
But people still wanted to see. He was such a draw. Ohtani was such a draw. People still arriving in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th inning.
Were you impressed? I mean, you've seen Ovechkin. You've seen. I'm assuming you saw Gretzky. I'm assuming you
Yeah,
saw Michael Jordan.
I
Like
did.
there are those people that you go to see. As I tweeted, I said, "Oh, you went down there wanting to see something special, and you did. So don't
I
complain
did.
about the Orioles losing."
No complaints from me, but yeah, he was worth the price of admission. You got a guy 6'4", 210, 220, runs like a deer, has a great swing, can throw the ball 100 miles an hour. I mean, what's there not to like? I mean, he's Japanese. There were a lot of Japanese fans there from Heritage, and a lot of Asians in the crowd, which I thought was great. And I think it just look, Baltimore's a great melting pot. It's a very inclusive city, and it was great to see everybody and come out. And behind the Angels dugout, there was a lot of people that supported him. He got a lot of ovation, and when he got up to bat his last time, Oriole fans were wishing he would hit a double. I mean, we were all rooting for him to hit a double, to take
They
a hit
weren't
for
going
the
to turn the
cycle.
sprinklers on for him, but
Right, but we wanted to see history made by him hitting for the cycle. I believe he would have been the first pitcher to have ever hit for the cycle. So why not? If you're going to lose, at least lose on a night that's historic and memorable. And it was. It was
Well, I'm
both.
glad we got to talk about.
Yeah,
Again, this is about the third segment in the row we've done in 2 weeks
baseball,
where
baseball.
we have not mentioned the L word, the EDC word,
It's good.
John.
It's good though, isn't it? Isn't it good that we're focused on something positive? You have Baltimore positive. The Orioles are positive. They're the second best team in baseball according to their record. A lot to like about this team, right?
I might
And
even be in New York next Wednesday and Thursday, so there's an opportunity.
why not? And Ohtani's going to be a free agent next year. Speaking of New York, and it's not difficult to imagine him in Yankee pinstripes
The
next
one
year.
thing I would say, and Ed, because Ed's a smartass, and we were, he was out before he left to go down wherever he went. I know they were monitoring the game and they were talking about the game, and they're thinking we got John Wade and Shohei Ohtani, and it's all good. But the one thing he said to me, you don't have to worry, he'll be pitching for the Yankees soon.
Yeah,
You'll
you
have
know
more
what?
chances to see him play.
I would like to see that. I would like to get more chances to see him, and of course, if he gets picked up by the
Why wouldn't you want
Yankees.
the Orioles to sign? I mean, I thought about this, and I thought, it's really ishy for sports, for baseball, that we can't have a toy like that. You
Can't
know what
have
I mean?
nice things.
Because John would say we don't have a budget for it.
Well, you know what?
Well,
This
you
is
know what? Buy the best player on earth and maybe build it. They'll come. You sell the best
oh
cars. You have the best staff. People come and buy cars from you.
oh
My programming. I've listened to the fan. I've listened to BAL. I was out at Guinness the other night having horse racing fans coming up to me and saying, "You know more about horse racing than anybody in the media." And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. You know what I mean? And I don't know much about it, which is
oh,
really a shame for the industry and them. But like the baseball thing and it
horse racing.
coming back.
Let's add baseball. Let's add football. Let's add hockey. Let's add basketball. Let's keep adding to your knowledge of things
But why
that
can't
more than
we
most.
have Shohei Ohtani? Why do we just
You
assume
know
he's
what?
going to be a Yankee or a Dodger? I mean, that's terrible for baseball. Shame on Major League Baseball for allowing that to be the way it is.
Yeah, the one great thing, the great equalizer for the NFL, Nestor, is the salary cap, and I would love to see other pro sports embrace that.
How would we
That
feel about the Ravens if they lost Lamar because they were like too cheap to buy him?
well,
I
no,
mean, baseball's
well,
been selling this garbage for 50 years. I mean, seriously. I mean, like that. I've said since 1992 when we were a baseball only town, it's their original sin. It really is their original sin that they've allowed Oakland and Tampa and Baltimore and Pittsburgh and Kansas City again to become slums
yeah,
because they redline. They redline. The sport is redlined. You look this way, act this way. This is your market size. You get to live here. We're not going to
right.
give you a loan. Oh, you went to the finest schools and you get to live in Ruxton and and that's the Yankees. And look, that's good versus evil and all that,
Oh,
but
it is.
that's not the way the sport should be run when he doesn't have a lease, when we're trying to we're here talking enthusiasm, and now we have to talk about, we're gonna have to go let Babe Ruth go play for the other team.
No,
That's
there's no question about it. But
that's
again,
not good.
you can buy a championship in hockey, baseball, and basketball. You cannot buy a championship with professional football. And I think that's the other reason why we love it so much. And that's why Baltimore can be relative and relevant, regardless of its market size, with a football franchise, because there is a cap. You can't just buy the best players. And that's what the Yankees have done historically, which is why they won historically, right? So it's great if you're a Yankees fan, not so great if you're
anything
Orioles
else.
fans or anything else, right? You got
Well,
to
I
build
just
a different way. You got to,
they
the farm
spent their
system.
my whole existence on radio. I mean, starting with we were the rich guys, right? It was us and the Blue Jays laughing at because we had new stadiums in the 90s, and then there was strikes and then we have awful ownership here that split the deal with Washington and took all the money and screwed everything up. 17 years now they've had a team down there, right?
Has it
Like
been that
it's
long? 17 years? Sheesh.
2005, Dan.
Sheesh.
This is their 18th
It's been a
season.
minute, and now of course they're not supporting them. They're not supporting the Nationals.
Well, there you go, because they don't have any money all of a sudden, right? So when you cry poverty and say we can't afford X, then I mean you tell your fans to go away like the Orioles did, and then you beg them to come back,
Yeah.
and they hope someone like you and Leonard and me come back. I mean,
Okay.
somebody has to be at the games. I mean, it weren't the people that were there the last 5 years, all 4,000 of them or whatever it's been.
Economically speaking, though, I guarantee you, if they were to sign in the offseason Shohei Ohtani, guess what? I would buy a lot of tickets. I would buy whatever the 13 pack, 20 pack,
It would tell me they're
whatever.
serious.
But I'd want to see
Right.
Ohtani pitch. I'd want to see him hit. I'd be down at the yard to watch him because he'd be a difference maker. I mean, right now I believe it's 5-1, or is it 5-1 in the season? I mean, his ERA isn't great, but he's still popping the ball out of the park. I mean,
Dennis,
he's
let
a
me say
difference
something
maker.
is really serious to you about this because the Orioles were real bidders for. I mean, I'm doing an event with BJ Surhoff today, Dan, at Fadley's. I have my Fadley shirt on somewhere under here. We're doing the crab races. They brought the crab races back this week for Preakness. So the era of Robbie Alomar, BJ Surhoff, they didn't get David Cohn, but they could have. They didn't get Roger Clemens, but they could have. Like, they were in all of that. And then there was just the BS that the old man spoke by the end about Teixeira. And like, they didn't even want to pay Adam Jones to hang around. They let him go run around and eat Kobe beef in Japan instead of being here and being an ambassador for the team and doing it the right way. And the Shohei Ohtani thing, he's going to go play somewhere. In the old world, that could have been here, right? And
Could have
now
been,
we
yeah.
sit here and say, well, it can't be us. And I just think they do themselves a disservice. That's all. The whole sport does itself a disservice when that goes on.
Well, I saw where back in the days George Steinbrenner one year had spent 250 million, but he had made 250 million above what he had spent. You got to spend money to make money. And again, if they were to sign a player like Ohtani, I would like to see someone do an analysis, a cost value benefit, cost value proposition to see what signing him would do for the Orioles, the fan base, jersey sales, you name it.
Well, Dennis, I would say this: this week the Washington Commanders thing's happening, right? So I'm seeing a lot of stats and facts. Obviously, the ESPN story leak with Seth Wickersham, who's been a guest on the show, and Don Van Natta, who leaked the prospectus. So these guys that are buying the team are not nearly as liquid as they need to be. Right. I think it's very, there's been a lot
Absolutely
of stories
not.
that like they wouldn't let this guy buy the team if he wasn't buying it from this creep.
Correct.
So they're letting a guy in.
They lower the bar. They did.
Underfunded,
to get rid of the creep.
To get rid of the creep.
Yep.
And they're letting him in. Magic Johnson, he's got all these plays. But they had a real prospectus in the way that when I recruited Brian Billick and partners 15 years ago, that I would come to someone who's got deep pockets like Mr. Coons and say, hey, would you like to, like give me a prospectus and sign the non-disclosure, like all that. But the piece got out, right? So the piece gets out, and their number one bet on the Redskins is they are paying market value for a team that's the third least revenue-generating franchise in the league. The NFL people think it should be a top 3 franchise. I don't even know if that's possible with the Rams and the Giants and the Jets and the Bears and the Eagles and then the venerable Packers and Steelers, the teams that have logos, right?
It's in the nation's
the Cowboys out. My God, right?
It's in the nation's capital. There's a lot of money in that Northern Virginia, DC corridor. So yeah, it does make sense for them.
But these guys are already counting Mr. Coons' money. I'm telling you, like they're like, we had 217 million.
They may get it.
We're going to get to 550 million by year 5. We're going to double.
They may get it.
Double our suite sales because it's so awful, right? That that they have projected that every Mr. Coons who threw back his season books, threw back his suites, all of the money of the nation's capital and military and all of the infrastructure, that all of that will fill up quickly. And part of that is because the Commanders, whatever the next name's going to be for them, because they're going to pick a new name too. They're going to be the Warthogs or whatever they're going to call themselves. That it's built and it's been destroyed, and now they're paying a premium to him for destroying it. And they're going to. This is not dissimilar to our baseball franchise. That Major League Baseball has looked at this as the sleeping giant and like all of that. And now John's running the place with TJ Brightman, and the best they can do is a hose in the outfield and $20 tickets so far. I haven't seen anything else around it, but the money and where the money comes from, then the malfeasance or the incompetence or the willful ignorance, whatever that stew of awfulness is in DC, it's criminal there. But whatever it's been for the Orioles are perceived as being the same. That if someone else took it over, not named Angelos, and maybe named Ripken, to take it to the other level of saying, oh my God, a hallowed, and Ripken puts Phelps and a thing together, and people get warm and fuzzy, and the Peter principles become something that is the old thing, not the new thing. I think it's hard for John to pitch it that way. And I think it's hard for businesses. And I've had a couple businesses come to me and say, hey, they're pitching me. What do you, and all that. And I think to myself, there's so much potentiality for the Orioles. They got you back 2 games. They got a couple hundred of your dollars this week.
I've gone 3 games. I went to the opener, 2 more. I mean, I've gone to 3 games this season. And I've had fun at all 3 games. I've had a blast. But
if Shohei Ohtani were there every night, you'd want to go every night. And I guess that's my point.
Yeah, I would.
And look, there's pressure on Rutschman now, right? You got to sign him and give him a checkbook. But to your point, if the Babe Ruth of baseball is available, do you want him on your team or do you want to go compete with him? Those are your choices.
It would help. Look, it would help with revenue, with advertising money. What do the Ravens like to say? It's a force multiplier, right? It would be a tremendous force. We as a business, we would contribute money to get this guy to town. Absolutely.
So John Angelos, then, if he's running the place, you're asking him to bet his money, no longer daddy's money, right, in on all of this. And I would say to John, if I were with John, it's going to make your franchise worth more. Like, that's really what you care about. That's all you really care about, is making your franchise worth more. And I tell you what, with Bisciotti, with Lamar, I'm not convinced that Bisciotti really, in his heart of hearts, believes Lamar is going to win 4 December, January games any more than I do. He's just doing business. It was better business for them 2 weeks ago to lose that battle and win the war of not showing up in September without him. Because Bisciotti's making $200 million a year for fogging up the glass, literally, right? So it doesn't mean anything to him. It's just now the perception is they can go win the Super Bowl. And if he's got that, Lamar rips his knee up in week 6. Hey, man, I tried, And the Orioles have never tried until now. And now is the time where you're paying attention. I'm paying attention to all of it. The broadcast, the games. I saw somebody got bad food the other day at the ballpark. I see that on, more people go down, more opportunities to interact with customers and have good experiences or bad experiences. Long lines or short lines. The toilets flush, they don't flush. I'm in a line, I'm not in a line. And you had great experiences, and I love hearing that because we need it to work. This is, as I said to Bill Cole, I was with Bill Weedell from CFG Bank the other night. It's go time. As I'm sitting here with Janet Jackson and Lizzo and Anita Baker was the toughest ticket in the history of the city. We're going to redo the Inner Harbor in the next 36, 48 months. It's freaking go time for the city. We have found the bottom and we're coming back. And part of that is the baseball team going to be a leader? And it's important. And it's important that you had fun. And I want to take my media and my airwaves to say, if you're having fun, I want to hear it. I want to know it. And I see it on TV and it makes me want to be a part of it, even though they treated me like garbage for a generation. If it's good for everybody, it's good for everybody. It really is. If 635 is good, then 635 is good.
Yep. And let's just hope at some point they open up the checkbook and keep this team together and add some pieces to it. And The more the merrier, the more the better. And that's why I think we want ownership with deep pockets that can bring superstars to town and really energize the fan base, the businesses, and everything else that goes along with it. Get all those wonderful residuals that comes along with winning, Nestor.
No secret to me, man. I built a radio station I built a life off of. If the local baseball team and football team are doing well, it's good for everybody.
Yeah,
And
you
I,
want them to do
I,
well.
I wrote that in my first book. I wrote that before that. I mean, and that's just the truth. And you're seeing that right now that people are leaving Halethorpe at 7:05 on a Monday night, leaving a John Waite event at a Preakness event at a giant brewery that got built. Now we can talk about all the politics of that next time around. But thinking about leaving there and going to the ballpark and being a part of it again, people who live in Perry Hall. And that's that's got to be the mindset. That's the only way this is going to work, and the city's going to. This is the big chance for the baseball team. This is their big opportunity. This is their big summer. I have my fingers crossed. I really do.
It's just great that in mid-May we're talking nothing but Orioles baseball in a positive way versus talking about the Ravens or whatever else might be going out there. And it's a great weekend. Preakness, as you mentioned, we got lacrosse playoffs down at the Naval Academy. You got the PGA Tour. Those of us that want to stay home on a Sunday and watch it. And Orioles baseball, a lot of stuff, a lot of great stuff going on.
I know you like the Baltimore positive stories. I had I call him a kid, but he's a young man, Richard Shepard from over at Forest Park Golf, talking about taking young people in the city and playing golf. And he was one of them who loved the game because of Tiger. We had just the best conversation. So go check that out, Classic 5 Golf too. Just about the PGA Championship this weekend and who's watching and, who stops their lives around 2:00 on a Sunday to make it happen. So sports is back. It's on the tongue, right? And for me, it's music and it's Baltimore and it's the city and it's spring and it's Preakness. It's good. It's good. And I'll see you next week too. And we'll have plenty to talk about another end of the race.
Absolutely. Nestor, keep doing great things. There he goes, Nestor J. Aparicio here in 1570 AM. WNST will take a quick break and come back right after this.